Hi, I am Anna Martin, and this is the Flex podcast. And today we're talking about recovery, when to train and when not to train, and how to start recognizing when those things might be coming in, and then what to do about it when we get there. So, the first and foremost, there's a massive difference between not being bothered to go and not feeling capable of going. And we need to develop that awareness whereby we can say, today I'm just mugging myself off because I'm sitting here going, oh, but I'm going to find any excuse for me not to go and not to have to get up off the sofa or not to have to leave my sunny garden or not to have to do this. But really, we know overall that it's going to be beneficial to our health. We're going to feel more energetic after, more accomplished because we've gone. And we just need to use that discipline to make ourselves go at the time that we said we were going to go. So there is definitely an element of that in there, and we've all been there. I think that's probably more likely to happen when we first start exercising, potentially, because obviously it does take a lot more effort to make that happen. Whereas when we've been doing it a while, it just kind of like you have in your head, you're going, so you go. It's just like cleaning your teeth or cooking your dinner. Like, it's just something that you just do. So if you're going through that bit where you're having to motivate yourself quite a lot at the moment, have no fear, because at some point it will feel a lot easier to make yourself go. So we do need to be aware that there is this part of us that might be just going, oh, can't be asked, so I'm not going to go. And because we can't be asked, we look for any excuse. And a lot of us do that in other parts of our life as well, in like slightly different contexts. So it is a very normal human thing to do, but it's just very good to become self-aware of how we personally deal with it and how we might be able to say to ourselves, no, darling, get a grip, we're going to the gym. So we have that side of it. And then we've got the other side where, first and foremost, we might feel actually ill. So if you are just recovering from feeling poorly, like you've been flat on your back rank for a few days and now you're starting to feel better, doing a light workout, starting to move, or maybe just getting into the routine again of going to the gym or doing a session can be really helpful, as long as we don't go too wild while we're doing it. So we're going to slowly bring ourselves back in. If we are currently feeling rank and we feel contagious and coughy and shivery, don't train. No one wants your germs anyway. So if you're going to a public place, please keep them at home. Secondly, it's not very good for you. So if you're actually shivery and feel like you're viral and ranky, then just don't train. Cut yourself off a bit of slack. You might manage like a little walk outside or something to get a bit of fresh air and a bit of sun on your skin or something. But apart from that, we shouldn't really be doing very much. Need to wait until we're no longer feeling shivery and gross. Also, if you've got a cough or something, we tend to, anything chesty, just not to train around that. So that's like illness-wise. But then obviously we have this when we maybe feel really tired or really overwhelmed or whatever. And we kind of not sure whether we should go or not, or perhaps we've been training quite a long time, so we're really used to forcing ourselves to go and to do things. But actually, we're not sure. Maybe it might be time to dial it back for a day and have a little bit of a rest. So there are like these two sides to it. So when you have been training a while and you're that kind of person, or maybe even if you're brand new to training, but you're the kind of person who's like 400 miles an hour, like I said, I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Never change anything in your diary. Always do everything you've committed to. You are the kind of person that needs to take a little reality check sometimes and recognize that you're actually human and that you need to look after yourself as well. Sometimes we can set ourselves a really nice training plan or a nice training goal that when we first start doing it, because we've come into it rested, feels completely appropriate. So, for example, when we come back in January after a couple of weeks off over Christmas, of course, our training is going to be on point. Because we've rested, we're also not going out because it's January. No one wants to go out. No one has any money. We're probably not drinking any alcohol and our nutrition's probably great. So we, of course, feel fantastic and that training feels brilliant. After a few more weeks, it can start to take a little bit more of a toll on us. So it would make sense then to slightly alter our training pattern to allow for our body to have the recovery that it needs in between sessions. And everyone is so different. But for most people, you would want to leave like a day in between. training body parts. So if you are doing total body Monday, you could do like total body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then leave it Tuesday and Thursday to do light exercise or cardio or something. So you can use your training structure to allow for better recovery. Some people might need longer, depending on the type of training that you're doing. Like if you're a power lifter and you did legs or something on Monday, you probably won't train legs again for quite a lot of days because your output is very high and very taxing on the body. So you need to allow for that. But for your average person, I'd say leave 48 hours in between body parts. Most of you are probably doing total body workouts. So that would make it easier to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, or whatever it is. We just also can start thinking about other things that could be helpful for us in terms of maybe we can relook at them if we know what we're doing already, or start to pay a bit more attention to them if we haven't for a while. And the most basic thing, but the most effective, is your sleep pattern and your nutrition. So if you're not already considering your nutrition, then you should be, in terms of looking after yourself. So sometimes that can be quite tricky because we can get into a rut where we're relying on things that potentially give us energy, but maybe don't do all that much to look after us as an entity. So if you're relying on a lot of carbohydrate, for example, and you're not really thinking about your protein intake or your fruit and veg intake, then obviously we're going to be missing out on quite a lot of nutrients that could help us in terms of the repair of our muscles and our recovery pattern. So we want this lovely wide breadth of vegetables, not only because of things like the fibre and so on, but also because then we get more vitamins and minerals across the board. Likewise with protein intake, we want to use different sources of protein because we get stuff like omega-3 from oily fish, and a lot of our other meat sources and non-meat sources also contain a variety of different minerals that we need for micronutrients in general for our recovery. So do try to think, am I eating a nice and varied diet, or did I just eat Doritos for my dinner the last 4 nights and now I'm wondering why I feel a bit shit? So we need like a little bit of a weigh up on that as well. Likewise with your sleep pattern, a lot of us have really shit pre-bedtime routines. So you've probably worked all day and you go home, chat to your other half or chat to your housemate, whatever. Then you cook dinner, you eat your dinner, and then you sit on the sofa and you watch TV. Nothing wrong with that. But while you're watching TV, you're also scrolling on your phone at the same time. Your program finishes, so you sit there and you carry on scrolling on your phone. And then eventually you drag yourself off the sofa and you go to bed. And you probably have done, maybe you're missing a few hours sleep. Maybe you need to kind of look at the timeline, but also perhaps we need to look at what time we had our last caffeinated beverage. So that should be, in theory, it should be quite a lot of hours, like 9 hours before you go to sleep. However, that's not always possible for everyone. So just try not to drink any caffeine after 4 p.m. Likewise, with your alcohol intake, that affects your sleep pattern as well. So it affects your ability to get into deep sleep, which is where most of the magic happens. So if you are having a nightly glass of wine, I would urge you to dial back on that a little bit and have some alcohol-free nights. One, because that's what's recommended in terms of your health anyway. But secondly, because it does affect your ability to get that deep sleep in. So even though you might be able to go to sleep quicker, you're not getting all the benefits that you could if you weren't drinking and weren't relying on it. So, okay, so we're going to think about our sleep and our nutrition because these are the things that have the biggest bang for their buck. Once we start to think of those, we might think about supplements because maybe there are things that we're missing out on that there isn't much we can do about, but that we might be able to do something with our supplementation. So, for example, some people swear by some magnesium to improve their sleep pattern. Might be that your vitamin D levels are low because it's been over winter. So that would help with the feeling of having energy. Vitamin B levels, especially for people who aren't able to eat fortified foods and stuff. So if you're celiac or whatever, you might be recommended by your GP or consultants to occasionally take vitamin B, to help with your overall levels of that, because you'll possibly be a bit more lacking than other people. And then, for some people, it might be that you're feeling less pumped in your workout. and less able to kind of keep going. So you could research creatine monohydrate and see if that is something that could work for you. So supplementation are things that we would look at, protein powder, so on, that we would look at to add in a little bit extra. But if we're not sleeping and we're eating nothing apart from crisps as our diet, the first thing we need to do is go there. There's no point, let's be honest, with this, there's no point polishing a turd, right? There's no point you spending all this money on supplements if you are literally surviving on crisps. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate crisps, I think they're great. But if your diet is solely consisting of McCoy's, different flavours morning to night, that you've got bigger things to worry about than whether or not you should be taking the occasional supplement here or there. So first and foremost, sleep and nutrition. Then on our recovery days, we might start thinking about adding some light exercise in, so things like walking or like low impact, low intensity dance fitness. So if you're on my website, something like Stride It Out, that's kind of a bit more chilled. That kind of stuff just gets your blood flowing, can help a little bit with recovery, and it stops you from feeling so stiff than if you're being sat down all day. So do make sure that as well you're trying to move from your desk, even if it is to quickly go and get water or to go and get a cup of tea or go to the loo or whatever. Try and spread out your little tasks like that during the day, just so you're not consistently being sat all day. Maybe you do a little bit of mobility behind your desk, or you're listening to someone bore the tits off you on a Zoom call that you don't need your camera on for, that kind of stuff. Or maybe they're presenting on there, so they've got a presentation up. Have a leg swing, enjoy yourself. Then we can look about whether we're getting enough rest days, which I did talk about before in terms of the structure of how you're laying out your workout. But overall, if you're overtraining and you're doing too much for yourself, then that will have an effect on you as well. Then we can look at things like self-care. So some of these things like having a massage, stretching, yoga, a really nice bubble bath. Some of these things can have a direct impact on how we feel in terms of our muscle tension, in terms of our relaxation, in terms of our recovery. And also, aside from that, it gives your brain a break. All of these things help you to reduce your stress. So even if you think, I never feel any difference whether I stretch or not, actually taking 10 minutes to stretch with some nice music on in the background or anything, just something to calm your central nervous system, make you feel less stressed, less pumped, can be helpful. So it isn't just a case of what do I need to do for my body. You can also find yourself mentally overworked as well as physically. And I don't just mean that from a work perspective, in terms of all of the other things that you're trying to do with your day. So then we come on to that. And when is the load on your body and your mind too much? Only you know that. But most of us have full-time jobs. A lot of you have people that you look after as well, like kids or family members that you need to care for as well. You have the pressures of making sure that you see all the people that you care about. You have financial stress. You're trying to manage many different things and train as well on top of that, and eat well and do all of these things. So when we have all this stress on us, exercising is another stress on the body, and sometimes can be one stress too far mentally in trying to fit it in and do this. And that's something that we have to recognize. For the most part, I reckon for 75, probably for me, I reckon for 95% of my life, exercise makes me feel less stressed. So it reduces my stress. It definitely helps the majority of people cope with normal stress better. So people report up to an 85% reduction in the stress they feel from a particular stimulus because they've exercised that day. So our perception of stress can decrease because we've exercised. And for most people, it does make you feel better in terms of your endorphins, your mental health, all of those kind of things. But sometimes it is one step too far, and we need to recognize where that is. And that happened for me this week, actually. So very top heavy with work at the moment, probably physically at the end of a training plan. So it's time for me to have a bit of a break anyway. And I woke up yesterday morning and I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, despite not having done any more the day before than I would have on any one of those Tuesdays that I usually have. So it's all exactly the same. But yeah, it just pushed me one step too far and I felt like absolute shit. And I went to work, went to train my client, and afterwards I would normally work out and then have a nice long walk. And I was like, absolutely not. And this doesn't happen to me very often because normally I'm quite good at kind of planning in when I need a break and all that kind of stuff anyway. But I felt like shit. So I was like, I'm not training. So instead, I basically did all the things that I just told you about. I did some work outside so that I could feel the sun on my face. I had a bath, not while I was working, obviously, in the evening. I did yoga at home. I did a face pack while I was in the bath. I did a body scrub. I used my massage gun all over my body and I went to bed at 9 and didn't pick up my phone again. I put my work notifications on Do Not Disturb and I literally just had a chill night. Still feel a bit shit today, but way better than yesterday. So today I trained and I've got like a mad couple of work days now, but I feel better for having had that little break before this is all going to kick off. And then afterwards, I plan to have an actual holiday and relax and not train or work or do any of those things. So we do have to have self-awareness, one, in terms of pushing ourselves to go when we cannot be bothered, which is not the same as not feeling capable of doing it. So sometimes you are going to have to give yourself a rocket up the arse to go. And sometimes you have to recognize that, yes, when you start working out, like that particular workout, sometimes you can start feeling like a bag of shit, and then 15 minutes later, you feel the best you've ever felt. Your workout's brilliant, and you feel quite proud of yourself for having done it. So there's that middle point as well, where that happens quite a lot, I feel. Like I quite often start training and think, oh, it's going to be shit today. Then lo and behold, I PB on everything, and I feel really proud of myself. And then you've got right up the other end of the spectrum, where you are overworked, tired, crying, hormonal, all of these things. And you're like, if I train today, I don't think I'm going to cope and I need to back it out. And that's fine. So we can always rearrange our workouts. Sometimes we just need to skip them because you do need enough recovery. Like I'm actually going to have almost a week off this month in different sections of training because I just need it. Like I've trained really hard and I've taught a lot of really hard classes. I've pranced about. I've got scoliosis. I'm 43 this year. I need to look after myself a little bit more physically in terms of not pushing my spine too hard all the time. And so I'm going to, and I'm going to bloody enjoy it. And I'm going to go for walks and have baths and have a wonderful time and choose to give self-care to myself in other ways. So don't forget that the muscle that you gain and that you work hard to build takes a really long time for you to start losing. So quite often if we have a week off, we're like, oh my God, I've lost all my muscle. You haven't at all. You just haven't stimulated it that week. So it's not looking particularly pumped or whatever. It's still there. And also your brain plays tricks on you. It tells you you're getting all limp and not full and of muscle and all this stuff. But that's not what's happening because it takes weeks for you to start using your muscle up. So do chill your beans about that. And instead of putting more pressure on yourself to do it, just be like, I actually need this time to myself. I need to look after myself. And I'm going to go back in full steam after with maybe a better training plan that factors in a little bit more how stressed I feel around the stuff I've got coming up from work or what I need to do to make myself feel great. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I wanted to keep this under 20 minutes, but I hope that's been helpful. And if you ever need any help with anything, or you just even need some workouts to follow, and also mobility stuff, relaxation stuff, I've got tons on my website, so do come and say hi. But have great weeks. Ensure you're getting some great recovery in, and if you need a rocket up the arse, just let me know.